Most agents think asking buyers, do you have a home to sell, is the best way to get more listings. It's not. Makes you sound like every other agent. It's why so many miss out on seller opportunities that are sitting right in front of them. The best agents don't ask for business like amateurs. They position themselves as the obvious choice without ever sounding pushy. I've closed over $1 billion in real estate, and I've seen firsthand how top agents turn buyers into future sellers without ever asking directly. The ones who do this right win more listings, win more referrals, and more repeat business. And today, I'm breaking down exactly how to do it. Now we're getting into that time of year, March, April, May, where we will see the majority of the new listings that hit in 2025. The meetings are taking place over these next 3-4 months. So as we're working with buyer customers who are on their first home tour, their second home tour, we're working for the business of representing them as a buyer. As we're working towards that business and we're signing them to be private clients of ours, we want to make sure that they know we are listing agents. You know, some of the things that we talk about, hey, there's no team in Connecticut that has sold more listings since April 2022 when interest rates started going up. Okay, that's fine, but we don't lead with that with a buyer agent because that's just a statistic. What is something else that we would shy away from doing that the majority of agents in the market are making this mistake? We're never going to say something as generic and cliche as, I also do listings, do you have a home to sell? Now, the part of that is true is we have to get to a place of comfortability where we do ask for business. We always have to ask for business. But just being somebody who walks around almost a walking commercial, I also take listings and do you have a house to sell? Do you have something for me? So there's something we've worked on, and I want to reinforce it here today. As we meet buyers, that we can now naturally weave in the fact that we're experts on listings, on seller strategies, on preparing sellers. We work with sellers across the board, and we obviously are listing properties. There's a way to mention that within the context of why they're in front of us, why they're working with us, why we're working with them and representing them on that buyer journey. And it's the two things the two conversations we should be having with every single buyer. It's the ranking the properties against each other, particularly if we're talking about 3 or more properties. If you're only seeing 2 properties in a day, it's a very simple conversation. Hey, which one had more of what we're looking for? If you've been on a home tour where you're at number 6 versus number 1, it's hard to even remember number 1 from number 2. They start to blend together when you go back to back to back to back on a home tour. And it's very important that we do the ranking. So at the end of each home tour, let's rank this one again. Exactly what Jill Biggs always talks about. Let's rank home number 2 versus home number 1. Now let's rank the next 3. Now let's rank 1 through 4. Let's rank 1 through 5. Let's rank 1 through 6. Let's have a ranking so that we get closer to being able to say, wow, number 3 really stood out above the rest. Is it standing out enough and meeting most of our needs where we should formalize an offer and move forward into negotiations? Are we at that place? If they miss the property they're really thinking about, they take too long, you're not to blame because you've asked for the business. So there's one thing we're always asking for, ranking the properties. The other thing we're asking for from our buyers is gamifying the experience of being educated on price. First time we meet a buyer, whether it's in that buyer consultation, that driveway conversation, or just simply on the first home tour, hey, there's really whether the seller or the listing agent even realize that they're doing this, and a lot of them don't. There's only 3 ways anybody can price a property. Has anybody walked you through that strategy? And most people are going to say no, right? And even if the answer to them once they hear it makes complete sense, nobody's actually walked them through the framework of how pricing property works, right? And so who wants to just give me the 3? Darren, you look ready to go. You got this.
There's aspirational pricing, there's market value pricing, and then there's undervalue pricing.
Yeah, so what's aspirational pricing?
Aspirational pricing is pricing it above market value in hopes of getting that aspirational price. Market value is pricing based on comparable.
Darren.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry to cut you off. If we say to someone, aspirational pricing is above market value in hopes of getting the price, man, I hope to win the lotto. People are going to start to get hopeful about the opportunity to get overpaid for the listing. So we want to make sure we label what aspirational pricing is, even though, people have called this over the decades overpricing. My good friend Sharon wordsmithed this thing beautifully to say, hey, it's aspirational. Let's label what that is. And how do we label what aspirational pricing truly is? It is typically reserved for what? Somebody would use this strategy. We use this strategy or we suggest to our sellers and our private clients that they use this strategy when they're in this scenario. What is that?
A more unique home.
Yeah. So they're an extremely unique home. They're truly one of one. You couldn't find another one if you drove by every single house in the town or the county. They're a luxury property where there hasn't been any sales in that pricing category to compare to. And we have to have a true test of the market where we don't leave money on the table. In these scenarios, and so when we're in front of the buyer, this is how we make sure that they know we're a listing agent, we're a seller. We work with sellers. In these scenarios, when we're sitting down with some of our clients who have a home they've put $3 million into it, but the average price point is closer to $350,000 in their town. Some of our luxury home sellers, our most unique, over-the-top homeowners who have invested in their property above and beyond what the comps suggest, we build a strategy with our private sellers to make sure that they have a true test on the market looking for that one buyer. That's where we reserve the aspirational pricing strategy for. Now, some sellers, you'll see as we go out on our home tours, you'll see that some sellers make the mistake of using aspirational pricing when there is a variety of comps available to them in the market. And so this is where we come in with comp-based pricing. The second category is how an appraiser is going to protect the bank when pricing the property for somebody who's taking out a loan, somebody who's financing the property. They're going to look at all the comparables in the market. And then the last one is what, Darren?
The last one is under market pricing, where we price the home under market value, in order to create a bidding war and drop the price up.
Yep. And what would be just a little bit of because as a consumer, it's going to scare the hell out of me to hear the words, we underprice the home, right? So what would be maybe a sexier way to say that, a way to make it a little more strategic? Hey guys, sorry to take you away from this video, but I want to invite you into the fastest growing real estate community on the planet. It's BAMX. We just moved over to the #1 training community platform, School. So just go to school.com/BAMX. I'll throw a link down here below in the description. It's school.com/BAMX. I'll see you in the community.
Price the home under market value.
Right. If we say that, it can be scary. So here, let me jump in and help out, right? So the last strategy, and this is where you'll see sellers that are actually driving the price up on their sale. And Darren, I don't know if you've just in the short period of time that you started to look online, that you've seen properties listed at X, but they sell substantially higher than where they were listed. And these are at times properties that chose an event-like competitive pricing strategy where they've priced it so competitively versus or just barely, right? And how we explain this, just barely. And there's a lot of strategy when we're working with sellers that are going to use this strategy. There's a lot of conversation and nuance of picking the right number just below the other numbers that have comped out in that neighborhood where it appears to be such a crazy deal that more buyers flock to the property, creating an event-like atmosphere early on the property, home tours and open houses, and creates such a competitive environment where buyers will actually go above and beyond where they were even thinking about going. And that's where we end up with some of these properties that shoot up. So Darren, as we're going through homes, and now that you have that foundation and the framework of, for decades, whether the seller or the listing agent actually knew what they were, selecting or not, that there's only 3 ways to price a property. And we'll get to some properties where the listing agent doesn't realize it, or they just listen to whatever seller wanted, and they're actually in the aspirational category. And that's why they've been on the market 45, 60, 75 days, because they're frankly just way above what the market will bear. And as we go through each property, I'll just ask you, which of the three categories, aspirational, comp-based, or event-based pricing, did the seller utilize? And, as we go through, this is going to help us understand what we're doing here is gamifying the process with the buyer so that the education of pricing is fun. So that they're getting that education by just, hey, how do you think the seller priced this one? What strategy did the seller use? But it also gives us, more importantly, or just as importantly, I'd argue, the opportunity to let every single buyer know we have strategies for all of these, and we have this conversation with our sellers, and I'm giving you the same information just as I'd be breaking it down for my seller.